You favor humanity with perception and teach humankind understanding. Grant us knowledge, understanding, and intellect from you. Blessed are you, Lord our God, granter of perception. With the blessing for knowledge, we enter the bakashot, the requests of the Amidah. On Shabbat, because we're living as if the world is already redeemed, we don't make these requests. Instead, the Amidah on Shabbat elaborates on the gift of Shabbat itself. God willing, we'll go into separate discussions about the Amidah as we say it on Shabbat and the different holidays. It's not obvious to us as humans who go about our lives with all kinds of wants and needs what we should request from God first. Why not ask for our financial needs to be taken care of or our health? Instead, we ask for knowledge, describing it with 3 different Hebrew words, dat, bina, and seichel, which we might translate as wisdom, knowledge, and discernment. To me, this is a reminder that before we worry about any of our physical needs, what makes our lives so special in the first place is that we're endowed in the image of God with the capacity for wisdom. Our wisdom will always fall short of its ideal form, but that's precisely why we constantly need to work daily on becoming wiser, so that the lives we live can strive to live up to the potential that comes with the wisdom we're granted. Furthermore, you can have perfect health and the ideal career and be blessed with seemingly everything this life has to offer. But if you don't have health in the mental realm, with a grasp of reason, clarity, and self-control, the benefits of all the other blessings will be wasted. One who is poor in wisdom will always be lacking. We learn a saying from the Talmud. Abaye said that we have a tradition. A poor person is only one lacking in intelligence. In the West, Eretz Yisrael, they say one who has this attribute, intelligence, in him has everything in him. One who does not have this attribute in him, what's in him? If he acquired this, what else is lacking? If he has not acquired this, what has he acquired? The Tur points out that there are 17 words in the bracha for knowledge, which is the numerical value for the Hebrew word tov, good. Knowledge and goodness, we see, are deeply interconnected. Rabbi Avraham Chaim Foyer explains, furthermore, this blessing contains 60 letters, up to the concluding words, Chonen Hada'at, alluding to the 60 tractates of the Mishnah, which cannot be mastered without God's gracious gift of intellect, Otzer HaTefilot. The words Chonen Hada'at, there are 68 letters, alluding to the numerical value of Chaim, of life. Additionally, this blessing starts with the letter Aleph and ends with the letter Tav. The first and last letters of the alphabet suggest that anyone with intellect and wisdom has everything, for wisdom is an all-encompassing blessing. I also see this first request as a word of caution to myself. You're about to make requests of the sovereign of the universe. Be wise about what you want. We can see that wisdom is so important, but what exactly is it? The most straightforward answer in the Jewish tradition comes from what we read in Pirkei Avot. Ben Zoma said, who is wise? One who learns from every person. As it is said, from all who taught me have I gained understanding. Wisdom is not just understanding, it's also about moral reasoning. Such a crucial part of spiritual practice is managing consciousness, not only because the realm of the consciousness matters, but because we understand the mind's relationship to behavior. Thoughts and behavior are so hard to change, no matter how much you want to. The easiest thing to change is what we say. That's why lying and hypocrisy aren't that hard at all. Changing how we act, however, requires the deepest kind of transformation, the kind that takes the meditative and consistent work of prayer. In asking for wisdom, we are reminding ourselves that our prayers can't be empty. We want it to filter down to our consciousness as well. There's something humbling here. It's very easy to think we have outsmarted God, that we know better, that we can disprove God, that God's not moral in some sense. By making this request, we're viewing it as an act of mercy that God graciously gives us wisdom. We could have been beings who exist almost on autopilots, like insects or robots. But instead, we get to be God's way of engaging with the universe via consciousness. It's an act of compassion that our lowly selves get to experience the world with the gift of wisdom. Though they can overlap, wisdom is not the same thing as intellect, of course. I'm constantly baffled by the fact that in the decades leading up to the Holocaust, Germany was possibly the most philosophically enlightened society in the world had ever seen. Yet its intellect proved to not be rooted in the moral good. A person can be both intelligent and morally bankrupt, but wisdom requires deep insight into the workings of the self and others to come ever closer to truly understanding the human condition. When we ask for Dea, Bina, and Haskel, we're not asking to be the smartest in the room. We're asking for an understanding of the image of God that all human beings are blessed with. Taking the first letter of each of these words, Dalid, Vet, Shin, we can spell dvash, or honey. We learn in our lives and prayers that there is something particularly sweet about mental clarity, to be immersed in the life of the mind and know how to use it in the world. What we're praising here is not God's wisdom, but the God who compassionately shares wisdom. So too, what we should seek is not to be wise, but to be in the process of sharing wisdom, to be in relationships of wisdom sharing. We're trying to have our imperfect wisdom live up to actual wisdom. It's always about cleaving, always about yearning. We can never achieve perfect wisdom. We can never get there, but always must keep reaching. Anyone who's lived long enough knows that wisdom is never something we're granted in its final form. We can think we have life figured out, only to learn shortly later that we're only at the bottom of a new level on this ongoing journey. Today, we tend to distinguish between the emotions of the heart and the cognition of the mind. The Jewish tradition, to the contrary, teaches us that part of wisdom is also emotional intelligence. There's an odd word in the Torah, chacham lev, wise-hearted. We're left wondering, shouldn't it be the mind that is wise? What does it mean to have a wise heart? The truth is, we don't live in a world of dualities in which it makes sense to pit the head and heart against one another. Rather, our task is to unify the entire self for the purpose of the good. When we think about the wisdom we need today, we can consider the different words for it that we use in this blessing. There are multiple ways of knowing, and we need to hold those ways of knowing. One way of articulating these is in the Kabbalistic Sfirot. Ways we can experience God among these is Bina. Bina refers to the analytic, distinguishing aspects of God's thought. It is the uppermost feminine element in the Godhead, so to speak, and it is symbolized as the mother of the Shekhinah. Many of the symbols associated with Bina are therefore identical to those of the Shekhinah. Having received the seed from Chachma, Bina conceived and gave birth to the 7 lower Sfirot. Bina we see as wisdom that can break things down to give us understanding. Meanwhile, a different Sfira is Chachma, which is a kind of wisdom that enables us to see the big picture. Dat, the last word used in our bracha, is the kind of knowledge that unifies these two. Additionally, Dat is the aspect that brings together the upper Sfirot, Chachma, Bina, and Keter, God's crown, with the 7 emotional Sfirot, Gevura, strength, Chesed, loving kindness, Tiferet, beauty, Hod, glory, Netzach, victory, Yesod, foundation, and Malchut, sovereignty. Dat shows us that wisdom isn't about just the creative or the analytical, nor is it about just the intellectual or the emotional. It is about bringing together all our godly aspects to be truly worthy of the gifts we're given. Knowledge for Jews can't be paralyzing. We often feel stuck. We don't know what to do, so we do nothing. Wisdom shows us that we must keep doing the things we need to do, even though we don't have it all worked out. Wisdom is empowering even when it's complicated. The bracha requesting wisdom, placed after the 3 brachot of praise, is the bridge between God's awesomeness and our mundane needs. God is so far beyond us, and maybe the bridge is this little wisdom we have in us that God compassionately gave us. And that's the place we want to pray from. We say, from there, from awareness of God's greatness, is where I want to begin to engage with my own needs. Wisdom is what opens the channel to be like God. I can pray to you because you gave me the capacity to have agency and think. God giving us wisdom is like a parent teaching a child to talk. It's even a gift going both ways. We have the ability to relate to the one, and the one who has a way to relate to us. With the initial brachot of praise, I feel very small. Who am I by comparison to you? Now, suddenly, by bringing our attention to a plea for wisdom, we realize we matter. We realize we have access to this gift of understanding. When we pray for wisdom, we're asking God for help and understanding. We're asking for guidance. We're accepting that we must do the work rather than being given all the answers. We're confused, and the way God will give us clarity is through these tools of wisdom within us that we need to learn to use. We're asking God to strengthen our commitment and ability.